Have you ever wondered why your country feels like a house with no front door, while the people in charge are telling you they've spent billions on high-tech locks? What if I told you that the chaos you see at the border, the smuggling, and the millions of people crossing back and forth isn't a mistake? What if it's actually a business plan? Your country isn't being run like a country. It's being run like a shopping mall, where the security guards are on the payroll of the shoplifters. And the product being moved through this mall, 20 to 30 billion rands worth of illegal cigarettes every single year. That's billion. With a B, manufactured in Zimbabwe by factories owned by politicians, smuggled across borders that are deliberately kept broken. Right now, smash that like button and subscribe, because what we're about to expose is exactly the kind of content that makes powerful people very uncomfortable. So, let's start at the ports in South Africa, where cargo containers are coming in from all over the region. And let me introduce you to Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi. This man runs police operations, and he recently testified before Parliament. What he said should have been front-page news everywhere, but of course it wasn't because the media is too busy covering celebrity gossip and political theatre. Now please show the video.
Do you think we have a national crisis at hand?
Yes, we do. We do. Why I say that is because we have only one scanner in the port that takes about 3,000 containers into the country. We scan less than 10% of them as they come in. God knows what in those containers are. Children have been trafficked. Illicit goods are moving into those containers. We only have one scanner that sees what's inside when that truck travels on that road, on that entry.
Do you think that that is intentional?
Executive must help us. If portfolio committee and everyone else that helps us to say, how are we prioritizing? What is your plan to deal with drugs? What about this, what about that? And where do you allocate your budget? Then we could be talking now. Instead of when we are saying, why are you buying that property? Why are you using the finance to go and invest in that event? Why don't you buy this resource? You have a truck picking up goods here in Cape Town. It travels from Cape Town with a container until it reaches deep in Johannesburg. It passes 10 roadblocks on the road because there's a lock on the back of that container. It doesn't get searched. Nobody opens it. It leaves Cape Town 1,500 kilometers to Johannesburg without being searched.
Sure.
And we don't have means to do it. And we need budget. It doesn't cost a lot of money to buy these scanners, but there's no will to buy them. And nobody pays attention on it. You talk, only now that the management of the police is starting a process of procuring it. But we've been talking about this thing for 20 years. It's only now we were starting to do that. When ATDF back in the days would block the freeway, we went back at the private sector to help us with a breakdown to remove the trucks on the road. We still do today because government doesn't have tow trucks to remove a truck on the road. That's how bad things we have. And you cannot say there's no budget for it. It's us who prioritize it wrong. And when we have to account, those that are supposed to hold us account, I think with respect, majority of them don't necessarily know the business we do. That are sitting as parliamentarians that must hold us accountable. If you don't understand the business of the department that you are managing, you take Mkhwanazi, you say he must be a member of parliament and he must hold a department of minerals and energy accountable. I've got no clue what it takes to start a mine. So I won't hold people accountable about their safety and everything in a mine because I have no clue. So bring a member of parliament to be a member of the committee, portfolio committee of police, and he does not know anything about the police. So you won't hold the police accountable because he will ask the wrong questions, not the right questions. And then we get away with, and we look as if we are doing something and yet we're not doing anything.
What you just heard is probably one of the most honest and terrifying things ever said by a high-ranking official. He tells us that South Africa is relying on one single scanner, just one. Imagine a port where 3,000 containers are coming in every single day, and we can only check less than 10% of them. It's like trying to guard a shopping mall with a single flashlight that has dying batteries. He says it himself. God knows what is in those containers. It could be drugs, it could be trafficked children, it could be weapons. And the craziest part? He says the containers travel 1,500 kilometers from Cape Town to Johannesburg, passing 10 roadblocks, and nobody opens them because there is a lock on the back, and the police don't have the will or the budget to buy more scanners. But it gets even crazier when you look at the actual border posts, specifically the one between South Africa and Zimbabwe. That's where the real revolving door starts. Now please show the video of the BMA official.
Scanner, this morning when I arrived here in the office, when I went to the law enforcement offices, when I was checking the number of undocumented, I found that the number, it has been gone high. It was 70 undocumented which were apprehended for the past 24 hours.
How would you like, as the president said, they were looking into strengthening policies around immigration in South Africa. Here at the Beitbridge border post, how would you like the assistance of government in terms of strengthening your own infrastructure and law enforcement and immigration, boots on the ground and all those?
If we can be given more powers of arresting, because normally here with the Zimbabweans, we just take them back to Zimbabwe. Then when they arrive in Zimbabwe, it seems as if they are not being dealt with. They have been coming back. Immediately when you arrived here, sometimes we'll be deporting one person, maybe 4 to 5 times in a day. If we can be given powers that, okay, immediately when we find such person, and then we can take the person, and then in the court of law, then the person can be sentenced for coming into South Africa illegally.
Did you catch that? The Border Management Authority official is basically admitting they are running a free Uber service for illegal crossings. He says they catch someone, take them back to Zimbabwe, and that same person is back in South Africa before the guard has even finished his lunch. He says they deport the same person 4 or 5 times in a single day. Imagine that as a job description. What did you do today, Sifo? Oh, I drove the same guy across the river 5 times. We're basically carpooling at this point. This official is begging for the power to actually arrest and sentence people, but the government won't give it to them. Why? Because if you actually stop the flow of people, you stop the flow of something else, cheap labor and illicit goods. This is where the story of the Zimbabwe border gets really dark, specifically when we talk about cigarettes. Let's take a trip back to the year 2020. Remember the global pandemic? Everyone was locked in their houses, and the South African government decided to do something no other country in the world did for that long. They banned the sale of tobacco.
South African security agents have seized a contraband of cigarettes worth an estimated 2.2 million rand that had allegedly been smuggled from Zimbabwe on Monday. The loot was being transported in a Toyota Quantum minibus when the driver was cornered. Limpopo police spokesperson Keno Malasela Ledwaba said the man was spotted by an alert border patrol team.
In a separate incident, the border policing team on Monday, 27th May 2024, recovered millions of rands worth of illicit cigarettes in Musina, Bembe district near Beitbridge port of entry.
They told us it was for our health, to save our lungs from the virus. But while the legal, tax-paying companies were shut down, the border with Zimbabwe became a golden highway. The big brands, Stuyvesant, Peter Stuyvesant, Rothmans, all gone. The companies complied with the law. Their warehouses got raided to make sure they weren't selling on the black market. But you know what didn't disappear? Illegal cigarettes from Zimbabwe. In fact, they flooded the market. You couldn't buy a legal pack anywhere, but you could get cheap Zimbabwean brands on every single street corner, in every township in the country. How does that work? The government bans cigarettes. Legal suppliers shut down, but illegal suppliers ramp up production and face zero enforcement? That only happens when the people supposed to be enforcing the law are protecting the criminals. Or, let me be more clear, when the people supposed to be enforcing the law are the criminals. Let's talk about the factories. The main manufacturers of illegal cigarettes in Zimbabwe operate primarily around Harare and some near Mutare, close to the Mozambique border. These aren't hidden operations in the jungle. These are actual factories with employees and electricity and supply chains. They produce brands like Remington Gold, Pacific, and various cheap knockoffs that look like real cigarettes but cost a fraction to make. During the COVID ban, these factories went into overdrive because they knew South African smokers were desperate and legal suppliers were shut down by law. Now here's where the political protection comes in, and I need to be a bit careful because I don't have a team of lawyers like the big media houses. But what I can tell you is this: multiple investigative reports from organizations like ZELA, that's Zimbabwe Environmental Law Association, and international tobacco control groups have documented that several cigarette manufacturers in Zimbabwe have direct links to politically connected individuals in ZANU-PF, the ruling party. These factories operate outside normal regulatory frameworks. They don't pay the taxes legal manufacturers pay. They produce cigarettes that don't meet safety standards. And when investigators try to expose them, they face intimidation and threats. Some of these factory owners are allegedly family members of high-ranking ZANU-PF officials. Others are business partners with people in government. The point is, they have protection from the very top. That's why they can operate openly. That's why Zimbabwean authorities don't shut them down. And that's why when millions of cigarettes flow across the border into South Africa every month, nobody on the Zimbabwe side does anything to stop it. But it's not just Zimbabwe protecting these operations. South Africa is just as complicit. Remember what Mkhwanazi said: 1 scanner for 3,000 containers. Trucks passing 10 roadblocks without being searched. Budget going to properties and events instead of enforcement equipment. That's protection. That's South African officials making sure the cigarettes get through. Why? Because people on this side of the border are getting paid too. Reports from SARS, the South African Revenue Service, show that illicit cigarettes cost this country 20 to 30 billion rands every single year in lost tax revenue. Let me put that in perspective. 30 billion rands could hire thousands of teachers, build hundreds of clinics, fix thousands of kilometers of roads. Instead, that money is going into the pockets of factory owners in Zimbabwe and corrupt officials and distributors in South Africa. And when SARS publishes these reports identifying Zimbabwe as the primary source, what happens? Nothing. The government reads the report, nods seriously, maybe issues a statement, and then does absolutely nothing to fix it. Why? Because fixing it would mean investigating the people profiting from it. And those people include politicians, senior police officials, customs officers, and business people with connections on both sides of the border. You can't investigate the system when you're part of the system. And it's not just about the cigarettes, it's about the people too. You see the BMA official complaining about the revolving door of immigration? Well, there's a reason for that too. Every country in the world depends on cheap labor. It's the dirty little secret of the global economy. In South Africa, our farms, our mines, and our construction sites rely on people who are willing to work for next to nothing because they have no legal papers and no rights. Look at what happened in America with Donald Trump and the ICE raids. When the government actually started targeting the farms and areas where undocumented workers were employed, the farmers started panicking. Why? Because local citizens often won't do that intense manual labor for the low wages being offered. If you deport all the people picking the oranges rot in the field, and the price of juice goes through the roof. So, what does a smart, corrupt government do? They make the border look like they are doing something. They send the BMA out to catch people, but they make sure the system is designed to fail. They don't give the guards powers of arrest. They don't provide the scanners. They keep the revolving door spinning so that the labor keeps coming in, the wages stay low, and the businesses owned by the elite keep making record profits. It's a form of modern-day slavery disguised as a border crisis. They want you to be angry at the person crossing the river, but they don't want you to look at the guy in the air-conditioned office who is making sure that river is easy to cross. They want you to blame the guy selling the cheap Zimbabwean cigarettes on the street corner, but they don't want you to ask why the executive only bought one scanner for the entire Durban harbor. Township residents reported that during the ban, you could get illegal cigarettes easier than you could before COVID. Street vendors were selling them openly. Everyone knew where to buy them. Police drove past these vendors every day and did nothing. Why? Because they'd been told to stand down. And they'd been told to stand down because the people giving the orders were the same people profiting from the illegal trade. This wasn't about public health. This was about creating a monopoly for illegal suppliers. Legal manufacturers were forced out by law. Illegal manufacturers filled the gap with political protection, and the people running the scheme made billions, while the government lost billions in tax revenue. It's one of the most brazen scams in South African history, and it happened in plain sight. And here's the cynical genius of it. The same politicians protecting cigarette factories in Zimbabwe benefit from weak borders because it lets their product into South Africa. And the same politicians in South Africa profiting from cheap labor also profit from the smuggling trade because they're often invested in the distribution networks. It's a closed loop. Both sides of the border controlled by people who benefit from keeping it broken. Let me give you the full picture of the money involved, because when you see the numbers, you'll understand why this system is so protected. Illegal cigarettes alone cost South Africa 20 to 30 billion rands per year in lost tax revenue. That's just cigarettes. Add in other contraband, drugs, counterfeit goods, and you're looking at an underground economy worth maybe 50 to 70 billion rands annually. Now imagine if that money was going to government coffers instead of criminal syndicates. How many teachers could you hire with an extra 30 billion rands? How many nurses? How many police officers? How much infrastructure could you build? If you made it this far in the video, you're part of the solution. Share this, like it, comment on it, subscribe to the channel.